Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is the 17th of January 2022. It's a Monday, beginning of the week, but a lot of stories to discuss with you. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the harassment, illegal arrest and registration of fake criminal cases against journalists and civil society activists in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That has been condemned by Pakistan's Foreign Office yesterday. In a statement, our Foreign Office said that this reported attack on the Kashmir Press Club on Saturday manifestly reflects India's use of brute force and coercion. This is going to be our first segment because this is a continuation of what India has been doing, and India is not stopping at any level, whether it be the brutalities that it is perpetrating towards the minorities, whether it be also a huge statement that has come from Dr. Gregory Stanton, the president of Genocide Watch, that something similar to what happened in Rwanda is going to happen in India very soon as far as the genocide is concerned, which is extremely alarming as far as this statement is concerned. And there is so much more to what India is perpetrating, and this is going to be our first segment of the day. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about COVID-19, Omicron, and the way the number of cases and the positivity ratio is increasing manifold every 24 hours. Karachi has had a positivity rate that is reaching 40%, which is unprecedented in the past. Similarly, other cities are also witnessing an increase, not as much as Karachi, but there is a huge increase every single passing day. The need not only to follow the SOPs but also to get vaccinated and boosted becomes even more important. This is going to be our second story. Then we'll talk about Tonga, ladies and gentlemen, that has called for immediate aid. You must have heard about the volcano eruption that happened in Tonga, and due to that there is a huge crisis in the area, and it has called for aid from all the other countries, urgent need for fresh water and food, and the damage that has been done by this volcano is also being assessed as we speak. This erupted on Saturday. It is said to be the biggest since Pinatubo in the Philippines in 1991. Then we'll talk about a sad news, ladies and gentlemen. Another veteran actor from television and film, Rasheed Naz, has passed away on Monday. His family did confirm it. The actor was 73 years old and was ill since some time. He was also related to Madiha Rizvi, who's also an actress on television. He will always be remembered, and we'll pay tribute to him in one of our segments. And then, ladies and gentlemen, finally we'll be talking about Afghanistan's new Taliban regime that says while being interviewed by the Associated Press very recently that they'll open all schools for girls across the country after late March. This, of course, is a statement that is very important for the West, because this is one of the preconditions that they have put as far as unfreezing of all the assets, the Afghan assets that are currently there in the West, especially in the United States of America. This said, there are a lot of also question marks as far as the women folk and the girls are concerned in Afghanistan, and this is going to be our last segment. Let's begin with our first story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the brutalities that are being committed by India in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and even beyond that. The latest being, of course, what happened to journalists and the civil society activists in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. More in the following report.
Multiple episodes of violence, harassment and hate speech against minorities in India vividly indicate that self-styled democracies hurtling towards genocidal violence under state patronage of Hindu nationalist regime. Right-wing Hindu nationalists have preached violence against minorities online for years, but the violence has recently spilled onto the streets. Modi's BJP is encouraging the persecution of Muslims and other minorities by hardline Hindu nationalists since coming to power in 2014. President of Genocide Watch, Dr. Gregory Stanton, during a congressional briefing, has sounded alarm over escalating extremism in India triggered by Hindutva ideology and warned that genocide could very well happen in India. Sensing India's descent into chaos, former Admiral Arun Prakash said in an interview that the silence of the country's political leadership over calls for Muslim genocide and ethnic cleansing is ominous. Since India is en route towards horrific communal riots, former Admiral Prakash along with three other former naval chiefs and a former Indian Air Force chief, wrote an open letter to President Ramnath Kovind and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 31st of December, warning about the calls for genocide and ethnic cleansing. There are virtually only a handful of political leaders left who even mentioned the need to preserve India's secularism and protect its minorities. Earlier, Hindu far-right religious and political groups sought Rohingya-like mass murder in exodus of Indian Muslims in presence of the leaders of ruling BJP in a three-day Hindutva conclave held in northern Haridwar city.
We'll go with more details, but after this short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and to discuss this very issue of India and the way it is treating people in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir as well as across India, we've been joined by Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab. He's a senior analyst. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. Sir, first of all, let's begin with what happened in this attack at the Kashmir Press Club. This is now, now that they are going towards journalists after, of course, addressing the minorities and the other folk, now they are going towards other communities who can talk some sense to the people, who can reiterate what has been happening in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir Valley. Now, where does all of this go? When does all of it end? And where does it end exactly? Or is there actually an end to all of this?
Okay, I think what is happening is that about 9 million people have been imprisoned since 5 August 2019. There is no internet. Actually, internet has been weaponized in Indian Kashmir, and uh, particularly all kinds of news going out from Kashmir have been blackout. And I think this has been noted internationally, and I think it needs to be condemned uh, more uh, by the Indian media, us or uh, the international community. So I hope that is being done. Besides that, India is actually uh, moving to its own disintegration by treating all its minorities as their slaves, as the slaves of the Hindus, and as second-rate citizens. And it was on account of that many prominent Indian journalists and politicians, they in the past have stated, this includes Shashi Tharoor, who has said that the soul of India has been destroyed. Even Mr. Khushwant Singh, he had said that India will break up by itself and that it will not be Pakistan or any other foreign power that will destroy us. And he said that we will commit harakiri, and those who feel secure because they are not Muslims or Christians, they are living in a fool's paradise. Says
But,
that nobody.
sir, with due respect, isn't India going exactly towards that? And despite all the different warnings that have been given, not only by people like Khushwant Singh that you've just cited, but also by former forces chiefs in India, also by different journalists like Rana Ayub, and the list goes on. But for the BJP or the BJP-led government, it doesn't change anything as far as their ideology, their philosophy, the way they are moving in order to go towards complete, as I will say, quote unquote, what Dr. Gregory Stanton said, genocide in India. Do you feel that the West will only react when the genocide will really reach its peak, or will the West even not react then?
I think if that happens, then I think all the minorities of India, particularly the big minorities like the Muslims who are now over 210 million, then the Dalits who are 230 million, the Sikhs, and the Christians, who are 36 to 40 million, they all need to unite, stand up, for their defense and for their right. And unless they do that, I think the world will not be bothered too much. They have a number of options to do that. The first option for them, peaceful protests and prayers, all the Indian courts at all levels. And if that fails, they have to actually come out. And like, what was done after the CAA in Shaheen Bagh in Delhi, or what the Sikhs did, in protest of the farm laws. I think they have to come out and they have to fight for their rights. And when it comes to genocide of the Muslims, then uh, I think they may even resort to violence in order to save themselves, which is granted, I think, in all democracies of the world. And if human rights are not granted, then I think the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights permits, resort to violence and even to rebellion against tyranny and oppression by the state agencies if human rights are not protected by the law of that land.
But General Sir, with due respect, do you really feel this could happen with the way the minorities are being coerced as we speak across India, and especially in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, nevertheless in other parts of India as well? Do you feel that the minorities are strong enough to stand up for their rights?
The minorities have a problem that they do not have very strong, bold, and dedicated leaders. Some of them are unfortunately self-centered, and they have joined the BJP and the RSS bandwagon. They have to reject those leaders, and they have no other options but to unite together to regain political space in India themselves. Their entire survival lies in that. This is more important, for the people of the Indian occupied, illegally occupied Kashmir. Even there are 6 to 7 political parties, and I think across the political divide in Kashmir, they also need to unite uh, and stand up, to the Indian oppression. Of course, there will be, there will be casualties, there will be sacrifices. They have to accept that. They cannot get their targets, without offering sacrifices. So once they are prepared to do that, I think the international community will certainly take notice. And when it comes, to the United States, which is keeping its eyes closed towards whatever is happening in India, that is actually very myopic. And we hope, and I'm sure actually that the people of the United States, they do not support the policies of the U.S. government as they relate, to India and its minorities. And I think so should be the case with the EU and other Western countries to whom human rights, are very near and very significant.
All right, now, General Saab, we understand that human rights are very near and dear to the people in the West. We've also seen the reports by Amnesty International, Genocide Watch, 17 other human rights organizations in the country that we call the United States of America that have expressed concern over the plight of Muslims in India. Despite all these reports, these huge reports, also the reports by the United Nations, 2 reports on in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, not much has been done as practical steps are concerned. Where is the line between all of these reports, all of the statements, all of the actions being taken by India against the minorities, and the action that should or will or could be taken by the different organizations that are located in the West?
I think I would say it once again that the minorities, not only in India, but across the world, and particularly those belonging to the Indian Muslims, the Dalits, the Sikhs, and the Christians, They are the ones, I think, who need to spearhead uh, the, the movement to increase awareness amongst the G5 countries through civil society organizations, through NGOs, their media, through their local politicians, because it's not Pakistan's responsibility alone or the OIC responsibility alone. They can be and they should be in a supportive role of all the Indian minorities, particularly the Indian Muslims and the people of Kashmir. But essentially, it will have to be done by the Indian minorities themselves. And the earlier they recognize this fact, the better it would be for them, for India, and for the rest of the world. And going back, to your questions about the possibility of genocide, if a genocide starts, I think many people have predicted that a civil war will ensue in India. And if that happens, India will break up, and that should be a matter of great concern, I think, to the international community, particularly to the friends of India, like the Soviet Union, like France, like the United States. So I think they need to do whatever is now possible to control the situation, which is going out of the hands of the present rulers of India and even their politicians.
All right. Now, you talk of the politicians in the West and you talk of their media in the West. The media in the West has, General Saab, talked about this issue and many other issues a lot about what is happening in India. In fact, they have raised it in editorials. They have talked about it in their television shows as well. There is a certain understanding of what is happening as far as the media or maybe the general public is concerned. But maybe the general public in the West also does not care much about what is happening in India. There is a certain political inclination of the West because of the presence of and the might of China that is also gaining strength by every day, and that is what worries a lot of countries in the West. And to counter that, they have their how should I say, feet firmly on India's grounds. This said, when you look at all what BJP is doing, General Saab, whether it be the Dharam Sansad that happened in Haridwar or in Delhi last month, in which a lot of slogans and sentiments were raised for against the minority, especially the Muslims, and talks about killing them. Then, of course, the social media that is of going rampant as far as these hate crimes or hate incidents are also concerned. Especially, I'd like to mention here Take Fog. That is one of the social media applications that has been used by the BJP government to further instill hatred in the society. Is it is also the responsibility of major social media platforms to control and subdue such sentiments?
Absolutely. And I think if you recall, last year the Prime Minister wrote a letter to Facebook CEO and to a number of other organizations pointing out the misuse of social media, particularly in India, where the minorities are trolled, for minor things, and they're being dishonored. Uh, we are all aware, how some websites in India were involved in auctioning Muslim women. That is extremely shameful. But I think the bigger responsibility is that of the United Nations Security Council and the General Assembly, where the principle of self-determination, whether it is for the people of Kashmir or other, that is enshrined in Article 1 of the UN Charter. And it very clearly says that that's actually the basis of, peace amongst the various states who are part of the UN, United Nations. And it is said that, this was specifically embraced by President Woodrow Wilson and also by the Russian premier at the time when the UN was being created. And it is fundamental to peace and security. It has been affirmed by the International Court of Justice, and it is aligned with the international law. I think it is the responsibility of all members of the United Nations, to take notice of what is happening in India and come to the assistance of all minorities which are being oppressed in India for a very long time.
All right, finally, General Saab, when it comes to minorities and, of course, those segments of the society that can raise some kind of a voice, whose voices are being subdued as soon as they start to say something, whether it be important journalists or important politicians or members of the civil society or leaders from Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and so on and so forth, even people from the opposition. There seems to be a very strong trend within the Hindu majority in India as well, as far as the siding with the BJP is concerned. Do you feel that the Hindu majority, that is, of course, a majority in our not so friendly neighboring country, India, is finally under the, how should I say, the charm of the BJP and its elected leadership? Or do you feel there are still some sane voices within the Hindu majority as well?
I think Mr. Modi has enjoyed support of the majority of the upper caste Hindus and some others because he has been deceiving them in the past about the economy of India, about the security of India, about jobs, and a number of other things since 2014. They're now realizing that other than the hatred of the minorities on which he is seeking votes, all other promises made by the BJP and Mr. Modi in particular, they have not been fulfilled. So I don't think he will get another term. And if he does, I think I am sure, and the world knows that will be detrimental to India's own national interests. And then, probably there would be greater chances of the breakup of India by its own rulers because of the policies that they are using against their own people.
All right, General Saab, I don't know how this is going to board, but the second time the BJP government did come into power, we were thinking that it would not, but it came into power with even a greater percentage of votes. So I'm very skeptical as to how the people in India are going to vote for the next elections and how this government is going to move forward in the next couple of years. And all I can say is that I really hope and I wish that the West puts some kind of pressure on India in order for it to change its tactics before it's way too late for India itself. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, Senior Analyst, to have joined us and to talk to us about this continued spate of crimes, I should say, this is how I would put it, or even the barbaric attitudes or this intolerance that the current regime in India is perpetrating towards not only the minorities but also the journalists, the latest spate, what happened in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and of course the list goes on and on. I don't know when they will stop. I don't know which will be the litmus test or the tipping point for the people in India itself. Let's come to our second story, ladies and gentlemen, that concerns, of course, Omicron and how slowly and steadily the world is being engulfed by this new variant, and at a very, very rapid pace. If we just come to Pakistan, not considering what is happening in other countries, in Karachi alone, in Sindh alone, the percentage, the positivity ratio in Karachi has been 40%, almost 40% in the last 24 hours. Extremely alarming situation. More in the following report.
The emergence of new variant Omicron is pushing fifth wave in Pakistan towards new momentum as COVID-19 hospitalization in the country reached a record high with a positivity ratio of nearly 8%. Health experts said that 95% of the cases reported daily were of the Omicron variant, raising further alarm bells. Karachi's positivity rate has increased by 4% in a single day. Meanwhile, federal health officials had warned that they expected the situation situation in Karachi to change in the coming week, as the positivity ratio might hit 50%, leading to an increase in hospitalizations. To counter the growing threat, NCOC held a meeting to take decisions on coronavirus restrictions amid a rapid increase in COVID-19 infections. The NCOC had asked the Civil Aviation Authority to ensure in-flight mask wearing and also implement COVID-19 SOPs at all airports. Earlier, amid the rising cases due to the Omicron variant, the National Command and Operations Centre lowered the booster dose age limit, with citizens over 18 years eligible for the vaccine's booster jab now. Moreover, the federating units have asked for strict measures against violators of existing SOPs, especially face mask wearing, and to ensure enforcement of obligatory vaccine regime.
Dr. Rana Jawad, Asghar, leading epidemiologist, joins us online. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, this is what we had also talked about previously when we had interacted about the way Omicron is going to spread and spread very rapidly. And this is what we are seeing, especially in cities such as Karachi. 40% is a huge positivity ratio. What's your take on that?
Thank you, Omar, for inviting me. I think 40% are not part of the field. Please know very well that that's a very dangerous situation. Today, Karachi case positivity has come down to around 30 some percent. And we don't look at each day's number individually, we have to look at the trend. And the trend, which is very clear, is that it is above 30%. So that's very concerning for a mega city like Karachi, and I would like that our public health teams there in Karachi should be able to manage it. And remember, Karachi was always vulnerable for these huge surges because it's our only mega city in Pakistan. So all mega cities are vulnerable. Karachi was one of those, and but the good thing at least is that Omicron variant is not as lethal until today as compared to Delta. So that's the only good point about it. But everything else we need to take care, because if we don't take care and assuming that it's very mild, and let's say it's just 10% of the lethal level of Delta, but Omicron is also 10 times more infectious. So the number, zero-sum game would be the same. So it could be the same pressure on our hospitals, because by sheer number of infections, the number of patients could rise, doctors and healthcare staffs could be infected and be forced to away from the hospitals or the healthcare system, putting more strain on our healthcare system. So Omicron is actually could jeopardize our health system by two ways: by increasing the number of patients, and number two, infecting the doctors and healthcare staff and undermining the running of our systems.
Dr. Saab, across the West, we've seen new trends. For example, the self-isolation period has either been reduced to 5 days, or there's almost no self-isolation period now in some countries. Then there is also the fact that a lot of businesses now, contrary to what happened during the Delta outbreak, are not closing as much rampantly in the West as they did during the Delta outbreak. Do you feel that similarly, we'll see similar kind of a reaction in the East as well, in countries such as Pakistan?
I think that's wrong thinking on base of many of the health decision makers in the West. And I think they are just surrendering to what I call is surrendering to virus, and says we can't do anything about it, so let's don't do anything. But still, even today, it's possible to protect you if someone in your household got infected. And yes, it is very infectious and it can spread infection silently. But if we just follow simple protocols and simple precautions, which we are talking about for the last 2 years, the remaining members of the families could be protected. And people take COVID-19 very lightly if it has a mild symptoms. But the latest data is coming, it is telling us that even with the milder symptoms, have a long-term, a certain percentage of them have a long-term health issues. So we should not take it lightly. and do all the public health measures as whatever is in our hand. Um, what is happening in the West is a little bit different, especially in US, because in US the hospitalization have also touched the record levels. In other countries, the hospitalization is not that much, even though the case numbers have gone to a highest level ever. In Pakistan, we expected a winter surge even before Omicron, and Omicron has done is to make this surge very steep. And if you look at it, like in just 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks time, our cases have like I don't know, like jumped 8 times, because we were less than 500 cases until like 30th December, and today is like just 2 weeks pass and we are above 4,000 cases on a daily basis. That's a huge jump in a very short time. But I also expect the way Delta has behaved, Omicron has behaved in other countries, that it will go to the peak very soon, maybe next 2 to 3 weeks, and then it will come back to the lower numbers. So that's my projection.
All right. Also, it is being said that in Pakistan, it's going to reach its peak around the month of February, that is next month. Now, what's going to happen in your point of view as far as maybe the educational institutions are concerned or the business in Pakistan are concerned? What kind of measures do you feel that the administrations in these institutions need to take as soon as possible, so that this peak, even if it reaches in February, is not as significant as it is estimated to be?
Yes, and the first thing every businesses and schools need to make sure that what percentage of their staff or students is vaccinated, or their employees are vaccinated, and it should be 100%. There should not be any exception unless it's a very some major issue or something. But that on its own will not protect people from getting infected, but will ensure that their disease stays mild and they don't need hospitalization, they don't need oxygens and all those kind of things. So that's the first step. Second step is that now even WHO and CDC are agreeing to it, that one of the major intervention is to improve the ventilation of your public spaces. That means your offices, your schools, your businesses. And in Pakistan, most of our offices, schools, and businesses are not those huge centrally air conditioned buildings. So here the ventilation can be improved by just opening a window or a door at most places, and we should focus on that. And by doing this, having masks, having vaccination, and then opening the ventilation and improving the ventilation, we should be able to control not only this wave but the future waves also.
All right, now Dr. Saab, this brings me to another question that we've been asking and talking to you about as well. Those people who either have been vaccinated and no longer want to be vaccinated, or those people who have never been vaccinated and do not want to be vaccinated. You know the case of Novak Djokovic as well, who has been deported from Australia very recently because he failed to provide any kind of proof as to why he was medically told not to get vaccinated. Now, in all of these cases and these examples that we are seeing across the world and in Pakistan as well, a lot of people that I have met also say that, Omicron being lighter or milder than Delta, and that everybody is going to eventually get it. Why get oneself vaccinated? In any case, let's get the disease and let's get it over with. What would you like to say to people who have this mindset?
So I would like to give some facts to these people. That still today, nearly 2,000 people are dying in US alone because of COVID-19. Every single day, nearly 1,800, 2,000 people are dying because of COVID. And 80% of those your risk of dying of COVID even today is 14 times more if you are unvaccinated as compared to vaccinated. Your risk of going to hospitals for intensive care or ventilator is 10 times more if you are unvaccinated as compared to vaccinated. So the vaccinated, if we want to make it very simple, is that the 80% people who are dying are because they are unvaccinated, and that's a huge problem. And for those who are waiting for infection, there is no guarantee that the disease will be milder. We don't know who gets. We know some comorbidities, but pretty much everyone has those comorbidities like overweight. Pretty much everyone after 50. Many of you have diabetes or heart diseases. So these are, when people say comorbidities, people think they are very seriously, sick, and so that's why they are dying. No, healthy people are dying too, but your chance of dying reduces significantly, many times. As I said, 14 to 18 times if you are vaccinated, and I think that's a big incentive and disincentive for vaccination or non-vaccination. And I think I would say the government of Australia did the right thing and did not allow a superstar to not to follow vaccination guidelines, which are pretty much universal in all over the world at this moment. And I think that sends a right message that no matter how big you are, you have to follow rules, because it may not, he may be very fit and disease may not, do some harm to him, like serious harm, but he can pass on this infection to
As
those
carrier,
who
of
are
course,
not.
and that is extremely important. Last question, Dr. Saab, booster doses. A lot of people have had them in our network. Also, everybody has had the booster jabs done. What next? Will we continue to take our booster shots every 6 months or maybe every 2 to 3 months? What is going to be this new protocol that we would need to follow in order to not only prevent ourselves from getting the disease but also our loved ones?
No, I don't think so. And I think these are new vaccines, and we are just learning about the right schedule, right interval, what is the best interval between one injection to the second and the second and the third. And it takes time to fine tune these intervals, the dosage regimen. And remember this, the days between one injection to second injection are very important and critical. And only with the experience and time, we will figure it out the best time intervals which produces the best protection. It will take time. So over next months or few years, we will fine tune those all those issues. And second thing is that the most of the vaccines we use in Pakistan or most of the developing countries are inactivated vaccines. And these vaccines traditionally require 3 doses. They are not 2 doses vaccines. So that's why the third dose, I don't call it booster, I think I call it the third dose, which we all got. RNA vaccines with Pfizer and Moderna, people were, claiming that these are 2-dose vaccines. But now most of the scientists in the West are also saying that they also need 3 doses. They are also 3-dose vaccines. So third dose is part of your part of your regular schedule. We will fine tune the intervals in the coming year or so, and then I think once we understand and modify the way we live, and that's very important, we will be able to control the disease. And then the medicines are coming up, antivirals are coming up. So eventually, I think 2020 it will be a manageable year.
2022 will be a manageable year. Let's hope so. Let's hope so, Dr. Saab, that it becomes a manageable year and that we get to follow a certain regimen as far as these vaccinations are concerned, whether it be mixing and matching the vaccinations or going along with the same kind of vaccinations over the next couple of years, because this is what we'll need to do. Just like the flu, we have to take 1 vaccine per year in order to prevent ourselves and our loved ones from the flu as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar Saab, leading epidemiologist, talking to us about COVID-19 and the rapid spread that the new variant, that is Omicron, is creating. And not only across the world but also in Pakistan, the number of cases are rapidly on the rise. So we need to be extremely prudent, careful, whether it be with the SOPs or with the vaccinations. Let's go to our last 3 stories, ladies and gentlemen. very quickly. First of all, we'll go to Tonga. Now in Tonga, what happened? There was a volcanic eruption on Saturday of Tonga Hapai. This is of course one of the mountains, and this is apparently one of the largest volcano eruptions since 1991. It was even seen from different ships that were in the air as we speak, or even from different NASA astronauts who managed to capture pictures of the Earth with this volcanic eruption. Now the Tonga's government is calling for immediate aid, whether it be in the form of fresh water or food, and the damage as we speak is being assessed as far as what happened, what kind of damage has been caused due to this volcano. Nevertheless, it is the biggest, as I told you, since 1991 in the Philippines. It triggered a tsunami and has blanketed the Pacific island nation in volcanic ash. We hope and we really pray that most of the people are safe, and that the government in Tonga, along with other countries in the neighborhood, are doing their level best to prevent people from, and of course the buildings, from further damage. Next on, we have a very sad news. Rasheed Naz, a veteran actor of television and film in Pakistan, has passed away at the age of 73. He had been suffering from several health issues from some time. He had been receiving treatment in a hospital in Islamabad, where he passed away on Monday morning. That is this morning. He was born in Peshawar in 1948, fruitful career of over 40 years. In 1971, he started his television career in a Pashto television play. His first Urdu play was Ek Tha Gaon in 1973. His first popular play, Namoos, we've all watched it. And then, of course, he worked for Pakistan's first private television play, Dasht, that was telecast on NTM at that time. He has worked in several Pashto, Hindko, Urdu language plays. He has also worked in Pashto films, and his big screen debut in Urdu films was with Sayyid Noor's Dakat. He was also lauded for other roles, notably in Khuda Ke Liye and Varna, that were helmed by Shoaib Mansoor. May his soul rest in eternal peace, and may of course his family have the courage to bear his loss. We'll come now to our last story, ladies and gentlemen, and that comes from our neighboring country, that is Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan's new Taliban rulers say that they hope to be able to open all girls' schools by March. This was told by the spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid to Associated Press very recently in an interview that was published by the agency, in which he talks about that. He also talks about other issues that pertain to girls and boys' education. What seems to be going forward is that there will be separate educational institutions for boys and girls, but they need, of course, as Pakistan has been asking for a lot of help, a lot of aid, as Afghanistan is going through a humanitarian and an economic crisis. Nevertheless, as far as the rights of the girls and the women are concerned, there are a lot of issues, especially when it concerns the West, who have a lot of questions about it pertaining to their rights in Afghanistan. Of late also, there was reported protest by certain women in Afghanistan again for asking for their rights, and that protest was subdued, which brings us to the very important point, is that all the aid that is going to come to Afghanistan will be coming from the West. And it is extremely important for a country like Afghanistan to oversee all the rights of its women and its girls and its children in order for the West to have confidence in it. We look forward to that confidence to be established. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments. Stay tuned, stay safe, stay vaccinated. Allah Hafiz.